Shub, Dopahar or Svagat Hai. If you don't know what that means, I am going to teach you. It means good afternoon and welcome. That's Hindi for you. I'm beginning my lessons today. Welcome to this Indo-Africa Summit. My name is Godfrey Mutizwa. I'm going to start with a big word, paleoanthropology, the scientific study of human evolution. So let me begin with a quiz. What was Africa's first export to the world, and where did it go? Now, according to the Smithsonian Institute, between 1.8 and 2 million years ago, the first humans emigrated from Africa to Asia. European settlements came much later, about 1 million to 1.5 million years later. So over the next 3 days, we will merely be reconnecting with brothers and sisters from a trade that started millions of years ago. That shouldn't be too difficult. Let me help you understand the context of the background of what we're going to talk about today. Just listen to this.
At a time when global economies are reeling from the impact of COVID-19, the opportunities are wide open to recalibrate partnerships, to collaborate and to learn from each other to mutual benefit. To this end, the Immc Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Africa Business News, the ABN Group, agreed to host the first virtual India-Africa Summit 2020. The summit is aimed at looking at bilateral economic and business opportunities between the countries in sub-Saharan Africa and in India, and will explore topics such as geopolitics, economic overview, big pharma, banking and finance, infrastructure, and digital and communication.
Okay, so let me give you a quick take on the program for today. We're going to have 2 panel sessions, but first up, we're going to be talking to some of the main speakers that are going to be addressing today in our opening ceremony. Very shortly, you're going to hear from Mr. Rajiv Poddar, is the president of Immc, Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And then after that, we will have a speech by Mr. Madhusudan Agrawal, chairman, who is summit of the organizing committee. We also have the honor of hosting the Minister of Sports, Heritage and Culture and the former Foreign Affairs Minister of Kenya, Dr. Amina Mohamed. Before we go, we will also have the opportunity to listen to the Honorable Union Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Railways, Sri Piyush Goyal of India. And then, last but not least, Semendai, the Sembembe, who is a founding director of the Africa Business News Group, is going to join me for a little chit-chat about what you can expect over the next few days and also some of the key issues and opportunities available on the African continent. First up, let me introduce Rajiv Poddar, president of the Immc Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is also the managing director of Poddar Enterprises, a company that's over a century old with resources, education, skill development, sports and sports education investment amongst its many properties. It is probably the only group in the world to act as a government house for 3 government departments appointed by the respective ministry. He is no stranger to the African continent, serving as a trade and economic relations negotiator for the Ministry of Foreign Economic Relations in Benin and Belarus. He has got many things that he has done. He's also the founder chairman of the International Business Linkage Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome our first speaker to this forum. And as I said at the beginning, he is Mr. Rajiv Poddar. Mr. Poddar, sir.
Thank you very much. Honorable Piyush Goyal ji, Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Railways, Government of India. Honorable Dr. Amina Mohamed, Minister of Sports and Culture, Kenya. Dignitaries, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon to all our friends in India and Africa. On behalf of the Immc Chamber of Commerce and Industry and CNBC Africa, I extend to all of you a warm and hearty welcome to the Indo-African Summit 2020. I am grateful to our Honorable Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, for participating in this event today. Mr. Goyal is one of the most dynamic ministers we have. He has been a friend of the industry, always ready to hear our problems and find instant solutions. Our gratitude to Minister Dr. Amina Mohammed for sparing a valuable time to be with us. A special thanks to our partners ABN Group, especially Mr. Rakesh Wahi and Roberta Naiker for their support in making this summit a grand success. India and Africa are two of the most vibrant and dynamic economies. Together, they represent 2.5 billion people and a GDP of $5.5 trillion. India and Africa share a rich history of culture, economic, and political interactions. In the last 2 decades, India's bilateral trade with Africa has seen a tenfold increase, growing from $7 billion to nearly $67 billion. There is, of course, tremendous potential for growth in the years to come. Africa is a continent on the move, characterized by rapid economic growth, rising educational and health standards, increasing gender parity, and expanding infrastructure and connectivity. The coronavirus pandemic has filled our collective future with uncertainty and ambiguity. A resurging Africa and rising India can join hands as we navigate through this crisis and also give a strong impetus to cooperation and capitalize on the ocean of opportunities in the sectors such as infrastructure, pharma, healthcare, IT, automobile, digital, agriculture, resources. India can be looked as a trusted partner as we work towards rebuild our economies to bring back livelihoods and to accelerate transformation and progress of the African countries and India for mutual benefits. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement that has come into force in 2019 established the largest free trade area in the world since the creation of the World Trade Organization in 1995. AFCTA has entered its operational phase now. Indian companies can benefit by investing in Africa for accessing the unified African market created by AFCTA and also creating a supply chain between India and Africa. As on June 2020, India had extended 181 lines of credit totaling to $12.7 billion to 41 African countries for development projects. 2 years ago, our Honorable Prime Minister outlined a vision for intensifying and deepening bilateral relations with Africa. He emphasized on developing partnerships to build local capacity and create local opportunities as possible. With an emphasis on infrastructure, finance, digitalization, health and pharma, our vision for Indo-Africa Summit 2020 is to look at a 100 by 100 matrix to reach the target of $100 billion of bilateral trade and $100 billion of investment. This summit will showcase new opportunities and spark dialogues on enhancing trade and investments between the two countries. This summit has been very successful, and I am pleased to announce that Immc, together with ABN Group, has planned the second Indo-African Summit from 23rd to 25th March 2021. Finally, there is a need for countries to collaborate and work together more closely. Let us work together as one, capitalize on our deep-rooted ties and huge opportunities, and chart the course towards a new economy for sustainable and inclusive future for mutual benefits. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you for emphasizing the ties that bind us together. Even when you look back in history, those ties have grown over a very long time indeed. And even when you look at, for instance, colonialism, we have a shared history in that respect. Back to where we started. Now, according to Wikipedia, Indo-African relations date back to the Bronze Age period of the Indus Valley civilization. Pearl millet first domesticated in Africa, having been discovered from a site of Chanudaro, and there's at least one burial of African women from the same site as well. Thus, it is postulated that Indus Valley maritime activities, including the journey to the Horn of Africa and bringing back African crops along with African diaspora to the Indus Valley, started a very long time ago. Let's move on now, and we now bring you our keynote address, which is going to be delivered by a prominent African woman. She is the Minister. Well, I'm just being advised that we are changing that. We are staying with the original order. That is that we are being joined by Mr. Madhusudhan Agrawal, who is the Vice Chairman of Ajayanta Pharma. He has a lot of experience, over 30 years, in the field of corporate affairs and business development. And he has contributed effectively towards social causes and philanthropic activities of the company. Now, this company is a specialty pharmaceutical company engaged in the development and manufacturing and marketing of quality finished dosages. The business includes branded generics in emerging markets, including, of course, here on the African continent. He's also a friend of Africa, having served as honorary consul of the Republic of Uganda in Mumbai, and is the chairman of the organizing committee, Immc, India mentioned Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Agrawal, the floor is yours. Can you hear me, Mr. Agrawal?
Hello.
Sir, the floor is yours. We appear to be having a problem with Mr. Agrawal, who is and should be the next speaker on our program. And let's try again. Mr. Agrawal, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. We're waiting for your address.
Honorable Mr. Piyush Goyal, Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Railways, Government of India. Honorable Dr. Amina Mohammed, Minister of Sports, Heritage and Culture, Government of Kenya. Mr. Raju Poddar, President of Immc, distinguished speakers, and all the participants attending this summit, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to the first of its kind, New Dimensions of Indo-African Partnership Summit 2020, presented by Immc and CNBC Africa. I am confident that this summit shall transform the economic development of India and Africa. Friends, our most emotional link with Africa is of Mahatma Gandhi. He once said that I may have been born in India, but I was made in South Africa. And for this making of Mahatma, India owes Africa an eternal debt. Cementing our warm relationship, our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi had outlined in his speech to the Ugandan Parliament in 2018 that Africa will be at the top of our priorities. We will continue to intensify and deepen our engagements with Africa, as we have shown it in the past, that it will be sustained and regular. The African continent is emerging as the prominent destination for foreign investors on account of its vast natural resources, untapped tourism potential, and progressive economic policies of the national governments. The East African country Uganda and the other countries symbolizes the growing aspiration of this continent to attract foreign investment and industrialize its economy. Most of these countries have been showing double-digit growth, Africa being on the growth trajectory, equally welcoming Indian investors, companies, and all the stakeholders with a convergence in interest in mutual development and growth. India is gearing up to become $5 trillion economy by 2025. Government of India and investors from India reaffirms its commitment to partner with countries in Africa. Africa is home of some of the world's fastest growing economies, offering promising investment opportunities in high growth sectors like infrastructure development, big pharma, banking and finance, digital and communications, which we shall cover in this summit. More than the digital pathways and bricks and mortar projects, India's association with Africa is about the human touch, about facilitating the capacities of the people of Africa, particularly the youth. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused severe impacts on the societies and economies across the world. The pandemic has overwhelmed both healthcare systems and government policies. India-Africa partnership can be transformed to address the new world order post this pandemic. As I conclude, I congratulate Immc and CNBC for hosting event for encouraging these deliberations. All this will add intellectual luster to the India-Africa story. From the age of colonialism to the age of globalization, through thick and thin, India and Africa have done much together. But there are still challenges to be that needs to be addressed. There are still frontiers that needs to be crossed. Wishing you all a very happy and prosperous festive season. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agrawal, for that address and for raising those issues and for raising again those important commonalities that we so take for granted. Now, our next speaker is our keynote speaker for this address. Until very late last month, we were all rooting for her for the position of the Director General of the World Trade Organization. She ran an honorable race. We remain hopeful that the other African candidate, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, still stands a chance, though developments that are happening in the U.S., as we are all watching, may not be so encouraging. Now, Amina Mohammed is a Kenyan lawyer, diplomat and politician. She's presently serving as a cabinet secretary for sports, heritage and culture in Kenya, and she previously served as chairwoman of the International Organization for Migration and the World Trade Organization's General Counsel, as well as Assistant Secretary General and Deputy Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Program. She has served as also Foreign Minister for Kenya from 2013 to 2018 when President Uhuru Kenyatta, after re-election, moved her to the education portfolio. She joins us, as I said. Please help me to welcome her to deliver our keynote address for the Indo-Africa Summit. Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Godfrey, and good afternoon to everybody. Let me begin by recognizing Mr. Rajiv Poddar, the president of the Immc Chamber of Commerce and Industry, my colleague and friend, the Honorable Shri Piyush Goyal, Minister of Commerce, Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution and Railways. Let me recognize Mr. Agarwal, the chairman of the Summit Organizing Committee, as well as Mr. Sam Bembe, the founding director, ABN 360. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me also to, in a very special way, thank and recognize Mr. Rakesh Wahi. Mr. Rakesh and myself have had very interesting contacts over the last few years, and I'm really grateful for his friendship and his support. I'm going to begin, Honorable Minister, colleagues, friends, by saying that the African continent is vast. It's rich in natural resources with a young population and growing human capital endowments. The bulk of African countries are poised to become growth and development poles in the coming years. In 2019, for instance, 31 African countries were among the 75 whose GDP grew faster than the global average. Yet, in economic terms, Africa remains tiny. With 17% of the world's population, the continent accounts for 3% and 2% respectively of global GDP and trade. The potential of trade to spark growth, development, and technological dissemination is amazingly enormous. Now, I think we've had from Godfrey, but for everybody else who's spoken about the relationship between Africa and India. And let me say this, that it's actually built on a really solid and critical foundation that dates back centuries, and some say 13th century, but I'll probably argue that it started long before the 13th century. And allow me to give you an anecdote. In 1497, the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama stopped in Mogadishu and in Mombasa in order to get navigators that would then bring him to Indian shores. He did not discover the route to India. He was actually supported by sailors from Africa. But not only sailors from Africa, there was also a trader from India who joined that trip. And so as we talk about Africa-India relations, I think we must understand that we actually discovered each other. We knew each other. We traded with each other, and we supported each other long before anyone else came to our shores. And I think that's a ridiculously amazing story that will allow us to anchor our relationship on that, going forward. Because we always thought of Vasco da Gama as the first sailor to reach India, but really that is not the case. As history and facts would actually dictate. And so ladies and gentlemen, as I said, this route, the India-Africa, Africa-India route, has been open for trade for a very long period of time. In fact, the evidence of our bilateral relations, apart from the sailors that helped Vasco da Gama, is spread across our two regions, from the Beja tribe that is in Sudan, and that originally came from India, to the Sidi community in India. It influenced our mutual support during the struggle for independence. India and Africa share, as you've heard, the light of the most eminent Gandhi, who began his career as a lawyer in Africa, and together with other founding fathers of African struggles, launched a nationalist campaign for justice and equality in India and across the African continent, with the vision that post-independence commerce between Africa and India would be anchored on equal ideas and services. Subsequently, India's first Prime Minister Nehru, actively participated in all our liberation discussions regarding pre-independence Africa. In 1947, he participated in the Brussels Congress of Oppressed Nationalities that was organized by political exiles and revolutionaries from Asia, from Africa, and from Latin American countries to provide India's unqualified support in the realization of freedom and self-governance across the entire continent of Africa. In fact, in many parts of Anglophone Africa, he supported our founding fathers who had been incarcerated with legal support by sending seasoned lawyers from India to represent them in cases that emanated from our independence struggle on pro bono basis. This gesture set in motion a long and fruitful collaboration in the development of post-independence legal systems in many of our African countries. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this foundation between Africa and India was much more solid, it was much more meaningful, and it was much more purposeful than many of the other relationships between Africa and other regions of the world. Building on this foundation, however challenging our trade and economic relationship has been over the years, should not actually be, and I agree also with Godfrey here, should not be a mammoth task. It should be a continuation from the ideological framework that was established by our founding fathers, a natural progression towards a common vision for the greatest welfare of our people. And although trade between India and Africa has faced serious shortfalls, hindering its expansion, specialization, skills transfer, insufficient market share, and inadequate financing, we must focus on what we can achieve with much more targeted engagement, aligned with the partnership that through such summits we continue to consistently build. Today, our engagement can be much more balanced and much more pragmatic, building on our mutual strengths and addressing our diverse weaknesses, ensuring that we embrace our opportunities and deal with any challenges that we face along the way. We must build a new age relationship based on mutuality, reciprocity, opportunity, prosperity, promise, and joint ventures for the benefit of our people and our economies. This new age relationship must be driven from the highest levels of leadership. In July 2016, I had the distinct privilege and honor of receiving Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Kenya when he came on a historic visit. During the visit, Kenya and India placed a high priority in concretely taking their relationship to the next level. We are still building on this relationship and have benefited from the exceptional focus of target setting by our heads of state and government, particularly in the health, manufacturing, automobile sectors, ICT, and education. It's my view that we must continue with the high-level visits between Africa and India, even as we progress collaboration in a multifaceted manner at different levels of our societies. This relationship cannot be one-dimensional. It cannot be a relationship that benefits one side at the expense of the other. If we do not deliberately fashion a relationship guided by equality of importance and mutuality of gains, it will not be sustainable. In fact, the observation by Busi Mabuza, who is here with us today and is the chairperson of the Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa, that we never needed each other more, and I'm quoting her, that we never needed each other more, is truer than anyone can imagine. It's also an admission whose time has really come. We now have, in addition to our solid pre-independence foundation, 10 guiding principles that were unveiled by Prime Minister Modi in 2018 in Uganda, recognizing that Africa should be top of India's priorities. I would add that India must be Africa's priorities. The vision of our African Free Trade Agreement is comprehensive. It covers all sorts of sectors, from trade in goods and services to investment, to intellectual property rights, to competition policy. And I believe that if we actually were able to work together to achieve some of the objectives and goals that have been set by this agreement, that would actually benefit fully from it. It will take determination and an unwavering commitment from all of us to make sure that it comes of age. Our new age partnership has to be negotiated by both of our regions. Our markets must remain open to one another with enabling policies, bilateral and multilateral agreements to ease economic exchanges between our respective countries. India's share excellencies of the African market is actually too low. And yet its proximity and accessibility to Africa is one of the closest compared to any other region across the world. I think that today, that reality should be unacceptable to all of us. There are many areas that we can focus on and drive this partnership towards concrete results. And this includes agricultural productivity and food security, information communication and technology, access to finance, clean energy, green transformation, among many others. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's not waste the opportunity that's been provided to us by the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's build back better together. Even as we begin to engage and take things to the next level, we must avoid the pitfalls of the past. This includes taking shortcuts and other practices that may tarnish the great potential that we have in building a partnership of mutual success and prosperity. This clear realization and recognition of the commonality of our interests in all fields and sectors must embolden our approach as we embark on this COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 era, a period that will shape our engagement with each other and with the rest of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated the real threat of marginalization from the global essential supply value chain. The rise of protectionism and exposed the present weaknesses of the international trade regime. According to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, between 500,000 and 3.3 million African people could lose their lives as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Growth has slowed down by approximately 2%, pushing more than 27 million into extreme poverty. 71% of Africa's workforce is informally employed, and most are unable to work from home. In India, the government has aided more than 362 million people with basic survival packs since the onset of the pandemic. In addition, 43.7% of the total population reported partial or total loss of income. The economy has constricted by more than 9%, with more than 50% decline in traditional exports. As a result, more than 100 million people in India and many more in Africa have lost their jobs. In face of the greatest threat to our existence, conscious partnerships and bilateral discussions in areas that will spur growth and prosperity are essential. We must keep trade flowing, particularly in essential medical supplies and staple foods, fighting the urge to impose export bans, intellectual property on medical supplies, novel testing kits and vaccines, innovative financing facilities provided, and India has been doing a great job of providing innovative financing facilities to African businesses. But we must also include a complete temporary debt standstill, enhanced access to emergency funding facilities, and the provision of liquidity lines to the private sector on our continent. There is a need to build a platform that can be a pillar, allowing India and Africa to engage on specific projects for greater social impact. And we have a history of this. Very successful models for collaboration in the field of healthcare. I'll just remind you of one before then I draw my statement to a conclusion. India and Africa united against one of the gravest healthcare emergencies of our generation. In the 90s to the new millennium, the HIV/AIDS pandemic gripped the globe, causing massive loss of life and destitution. The pandemic brought into sharp focus the linkages between global intellectual property rights regime and its impact on large-scale provision of drugs. An impasse that was resolved through negotiations to amend the World Trade Organization's agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, to make it easier for poor countries to obtain cheaper generic versions of patented medicines by setting aside a provision of the TRIPS agreement that hindered exports of pharmaceuticals manufactured under compulsory licenses to countries that had no capacity to manufacture. As a result of this amendment, whose negotiations I had the great honor to lead, there was a drastic decline in the prices of ARVs due to increased availability of generic ARVs produced by Indian local pharmaceutical industry, among others. This breakthrough, according to UNAIDS, has over the years saved the lives of millions and millions of people across the globe. Going forward, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must delve deeper into partnerships to support the development of the pharmaceutical industry on the continent with lessons from that experience that we had with India. Mutually beneficial and consistent partnerships are possible. The progressive development of new age partnerships between India and Africa can be demonstrated by key occurrences in the past decade. And I'm not going to name all of them. I will just name one. That India was actually the first country to become a full member of the African Capacity Building Foundation and provided $1 million to build capacity for sustainable development and poverty alleviation. I will name one more. It also set up the techno-economic approach to Africa-India movement initiative with 8 countries from Francophone Africa to set up a mechanism for bilateral and sub-regional projects that was worth $500 million. Partnership in education was also core to the core area of focus for India and Africa, and we are extremely delighted to be part of that. Conversely, African countries have also invested in India, and Mauritius is a good example of a large offshore investor in India. We have cooperated in the area of marine security and investment, and I think that also is an area of growth for our partnership if we decide to make better use of our joint common resource, the massive blue economy provided by the Indian Ocean. I think therein lies our greatest complementarity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, despite these gains, we must now jointly explore more areas of partnership in manufacturing by venturing into new markets in Africa and in India, opening up regional bilateral trade discussions around areas of growth, exploring the wealth of the digital age and the unique expertise along with it across Africa and India. We must also deliberately aid skills transfer across both regions. Africa is the investment and trade destination for many countries from developed and developing countries. It's also the last major market consisting of 1.3 billion people. It's poised to provide 40% of the world's workforce by 2050 because of our demographic dividend. My advice as I conclude today is to encourage all of you to think of engaging with Africa not only in terms of export-import trade, but also in terms of investing in production, in manufacturing, in skills development, in artificial intelligence, in analytical thinking and innovation, technological design and programming. That will ensure sustainable market access and sustainable partnerships pivoted upon the demands of the future. We must engage with the deliberate intent of ensuring that as many of our young people as possible are prepared to take up the estimated 95 million jobs that will be created by the industries of the future by 2025. In the same vein, ladies and gentlemen, we must ensure that we retool as many of them as possible to shield them from the imminent job losses of up to 87 million anticipated by the same year, 2025. Additionally, we must continuously confer to establish stronger diplomatic ties to pursue mutual concerns at the multilateral level. It's my hope, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that this summit will stretch these discussions and provide an avenue for real-life, actionable, and verifiable follow-throughs. I want to thank you very much for your attention.
Minister, thank you very much indeed. Indeed, you remind me of the other story that we've always had to deal with here in Southern Africa, that David Livingstone, the Scottish missionary, discovered the Victoria Falls. We know, of course, he was led to the Victoria Falls by locals. And need I remind you of the other story that we have around, this naming of historical places. Edmund Hillary, that New Zealander, who is credited with being one of the first people to reach Mount Everest. But we all know, of course, he probably was led up there by one of the locals. And in this instance, it was, I think it's Guy, the local guy who helped him to reach that mountain. So yeah, we need, of course, to correct these things, and Wikipedia and others are slowly correcting them. And Minister, thank you as well for outlining those are the many areas and length of breadth of possible areas where there could be cooperation between India and Africa. And of course, the historical links between the two continents. I keep saying continents, but yeah, you have to think of India as a continent, because 1.2 billion people for Africa, 1.3 billion people for India. So we are very close indeed in terms of demographics as well as the opportunities, I dare say. Let us move on now and bring in our next speaker. And he is the Union Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He was Deputy Leader of the Rajya Sabha. He was earlier the Minister of Railways and Coal, and has also held additional portfolios, including being in charge of Finance and Corporate Affairs twice in 2018 and 2019. Earlier, he was Minister of State for Power, Coal, New and Renewable Energy and Mines. Now, his tenure when he was Minister of Railways saw the Indian Railways achieve their best ever safety record in 2018 and 2019. Now, I could go on and on and on and on. You can see he's been a long time in public service. Minister, welcome to the first Indo-Africa Summit. I certainly hope that by the end of this summit, we will have established many levels of cooperation that are possible between the two regions, continents, stroke, friends from a historical past. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, gentlemen. My good friend, Dr. Amina Mohammed, the Honorable Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Heritage and Culture, and the former Foreign Minister of Kenya, Mr. Madhusudan Agarwal, the Chairman of the Summit Organizing Committee, Mr. Rajiv Poddar, President of the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Sam Bhembe, the Non-Executive Director of the ABN Group, all the distinguished participants in this very important IMC Indo-Africa Summit. A warm welcome to you and a very good afternoon. It's a privilege to be sharing this platform with Dr. Amina. Even though we have to interact in this day and age of COVID through virtual means, and we are not able to come together and bring that personal touch to our various engagements, I think the very long historical ties between the people of Africa and the people of India will not get affected by distance or lack of personal meeting. Even virtually, our ties will only get stronger and better. Even virtually, we will convey the right message to the people of Africa and India. We are natural partners in civilization, in culture, and progress. And we are forged by very strong bonds. Long tradition that Dr. Amina just spoke about, bonds of friendship, bonds of civilizational contact. She went right back to Vasco da Gama. Historical goodwill that our leaders shared, that our people shared with each other, our shared experiences, and the common worldview that the people of Africa and the people of India shared over, I would say, centuries of goodwill between the two continents, or rather the African continent and the Indian subcontinent. If I may quote Henry Ford, coming together is a beginning. Staying together is progress. And working together is success. And I have no doubt in my mind that the African nations and India working together in this spirit of oneness, with the close cooperation that we have seen over decades and decades of our relations, will only result in success, will only give our people prosperity, will only lead to a better quality of life for the people of Africa and the people of India. Our struggles, as Dr. Amina also referred to, were and are very similar. The association over the years has blossomed into a multifaceted and multi-pronged partnership. But this partnership came at a lot of cost to both the people of both regions. And I think the people of Africa and the people of India today are aligned in our interactions on almost all fronts. We work together, we care for each other, and together, I am confident we can uplift our people from the current state of affairs. We can bring prosperity to the billions in Africa and India, and we can make sure that our economies are the aspirations of our people and the need of the hour for a better future for our children can be taken care of collectively in a collaborative approach, cooperating with each other. In fact, the more we collaborate, the more we remain committed to each other, I'm sure we'll be able to take care of the problems of 1/3 of humanity between the people of Africa and the people of India. We have common areas of interest. We are all struggling to find solutions to climate change. There are issues around food security, which we certainly believe we can work together to support each other. There is the concerns around malnutrition, on which we in India are working, all of you are working in the African countries. There is huge inequality amongst the people of developing countries and the developed world, which we need to bridge. We are both sufferers of terrorism and need to put our best foot forward in the fight against terrorism. And we all have to work to provide quality jobs and employment to our people. As they say, the present is for building solidarity amongst us. The future is for cooperation and collaboration. And when we cooperate, when we collaborate, we will certainly create new beginnings and a better future for our people. COVID has brought out the stark reality about healthcare and its importance before us, and it has emphasized the importance of international cooperation in tackling such challenges. Of course, all of us are working towards finding a vaccine, finding a cure for COVID, but as they say, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And the more we work together, the more we work with care and concern for each other, the faster the world will come out of this pandemic. Clearly, no country can fight this crisis on its own. And even if some countries were able to overcome this crisis in this global interconnected world, it's not possible unless the entire globe, the people of all the nations, work together and find a permanent solution to the COVID challenge. India commits itself that it will act responsibly, that it will act as a partner with all friendly nations and will be a trusted support to all our friends across the world when it comes to providing medicines, vaccines, and other support that will help all of us come out of COVID-19. In fact, at the peak of the pandemic, when the world was struggling for medicines, India, which is often referred to as the pharmacy of the world, brought in some restrictions on our medical exports, not to stop those exports, not so that those medicines don't reach the rest of the world. Our approach was we wanted to ensure a fair and equitable distribution of the medicines to all the countries in the world. Otherwise, the richer nations with more clout would have cornered the medicines, and the less developed nations, the developing countries, would probably never have been able to purchase medicines, given the clout, the financial clout of the developed world. India brought in those restrictions only to make sure that it is democratically made available to every part of the world. In fact, more than 32 African countries also who needed the medicines were given the medicines by India, in most cases as a grant, to make sure that the smallest or the least developed countries also get as many medical supplies as they require. And that truly demonstrates Prime Minister Narendra Modi's thinking, his vision, and his deep commitment to the rest of the world. We have a lot to learn from each other. We have a lot that we can work together on. Our commitment to Africa is reflected in a number of projects that we are working together on, that we are implementing in Africa. Our Indian engineering companies are working in different parts of Africa in infrastructure development, roads, highways, railways, ports, variety of projects. There are lines of credit which are available to the African countries, and currently we are executing over $5 billion worth of projects in different parts of Africa. I'm sure this relationship can and will expand in the days and years to come. We believe the railways, which I also look after in India, also has a lot to offer to our African countries. We can help you develop your railroads. We can help you bring in modern technology to your railroad systems. We are happy to support the fast rollout of rail infrastructure and network across Africa, because truly the railways is an engine of economic growth. It connects regions. It allows for movement of goods and people through different parts of your continent, and it will truly bind the people of Africa together. And we in India are very, very hopeful that we can help make Africa, the railway infrastructure in Africa the engine of its progress. And we assure you of all support that any African nation may be looking for. We have also developed huge capabilities in digital infrastructure, the IT sector, in digital payment infrastructure through the world's lowest cost transaction base in India, the UPI, the United Payment Interface, the unified payment interface that India has developed is the lowest transaction cost on digital payments anywhere in the world. And I would offer it to all our African country partners, friends, that you take our India stack on digital payments, the UPI system. We'll be happy to share it with you, and we'll be happy to roll it out across Africa, which I believe can save the people of Africa billions of dollars in transaction costs and remittance costs from other parts of the world that Africans send remittances to. It's something that I believe we should work together on. We should create digital platforms and implement features like direct benefit transfer, digital payments, and integrate the rural parts of Africa with the cities and with the rest of the world. We have also started a project in India. The Prime Minister announced on 15th August, our Independence Day, that in the next 1,000 days, we will take internet and digital connectivity to every single village in the country. We have 600,000 villages in India. We are committed to take the internet and digital infrastructure to every single village. We'll be happy to collaborate with Africa to quickly roll out internet and broadband services across the length and breadth of Africa at very competitive costs. What India offers to Africa is both high quality and affordability. And I can assure you, compared to any other part of the world, Indian costs will be most competitive, reasonable, fair, transparent, and attractive. I can share with you my own experience when we launched the LED bulb program in India. India was typically using the old incandescent bulbs for our lighting load. Prime Minister Modi launched on 5th of January 2015 the world's largest rollout of LED bulbs. And I'm happy to share with you, in the past 5 years, India has completely changed, transformed India's lighting load. And no more does India use those power guzzling old incandescent bulbs. All our lighting has moved to LED lighting. You go to a shop in India and ask for an old bulb, you may actually not find it there. And we have probably sold over 1.5 billion LED bulbs in the last 5 years in India. And as you are aware, against a 6 month to a year's life of an incandescent bulb, LEDs work for 6 or 7 years. And you'll be happy to know the prices of LED bulbs in India fell by 85%. 85%. And today, an LED bulb which lasts 7 or 8 years is available for under $1, anywhere between 80 cents to $1 for a 12-watt LED bulb, which can light up a whole room. And these are the kind of programs and initiatives which bring down your carbon emission, help you address pollution, because most of us use coal-based power plants, reduce your peak load requirement, particularly in the evening hours. Against a 100-watt bulb, you'll be using a 12-watt bulb. India alone is saving 40 billion units of electricity every year. And in terms of money value, our savings exceed $10 billion because of the switchover from incandescent to LED bulbs. That's the saving every year that we've been able to benefit from. These learnings of India can certainly help our friends in Africa roll out benefits for the people of Africa much faster. As Desmond Tutu, the famous South African human rights activist and Nobel Peace Prize winner, had said, do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. I think collectively we can work to do our little bit of good for our people wherever we are. And it's these small little bits of good that will pool together, that will collectively transform the lives of our people. And as he said, overwhelm the world, overwhelm the future of our children. And I'm sure, despite so many challenges that India faces, that Africa faces, when we pool our resources together, when we work together, we will be able to truly reform, perform, and transform the lives of our people. Under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, we have focused on 5 I's: inclusiveness, indigenization, innovation, investments, and international cooperation. I invite Africa to be a part of this program for a more inclusive development of our people, to promote indigenization and domestic manufacturing of the requirements of our people, to inculcate that spirit of inquiry, to promote research, development, innovation in our countries, attract investments through ease of doing business and the necessary regulatory framework, and work through greater international cooperation for a better future for the people of Africa and the people of India. Swami Vivekananda, one of the greatest Indians to be born in India, had said, and I quote, "If faith in ourselves had been extensively taught and practiced, a very large portion of the evil and miseries that we have would have vanished." I think it's time we ignited that faith amongst each other, amongst our people, that we can overcome these challenges, that we can work together, and no power on earth will be able to stop the progress of Africa and India. Let us intensify and deepen our engagement in a sustained and regular manner. Let us constantly work to strengthen the 4 pillars of our relationship. And let us work together to build a more diverse, robust, and resilient supply chain between Africa and India. Let us also resolve to keep our markets open and make it easier and more attractive to trade between Africa and India. We assure you we will support our industry to invest in Africa in a big way, and certainly the trade figures over the last 20 years, where our mutual trade, bilateral trade, has grown from about $7 billion to nearly $67 billion now, is reflective of this deep engagement between Africa and India. Initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that Dr. Amina also referred to will further help Indian investors and businesses to engage with Africa. We have in fact extended duty-free tariff preference scheme to at least 26 of the least developed countries in Africa. And I hope they will take advantage of this large Indian market with which they can trade. Ladies and gentlemen, initiatives like today's virtual engagement help us to rededicate ourselves to this strong bond of friendship and oneness. As Mr. Kofi Annan had mentioned, global solidarity is both necessary and possible. It is necessary because without a measure of solidarity, no society can be truly stable. We strongly believe that Africa's rise globally is an absolute necessity in the present times. We are willing to cooperate and provide support in achieving this goal. My best wishes to you, Dr. Amina Mohammed, and to all the other friends from different parts of Africa on this call today, on this virtual summit. My best wishes to you and your near and dear ones, your families. Please stay safe, stay healthy. We pray for the good health of the people of all of the African countries, and we all wish for a bright future for the children of Africa and India. We all will rededicate ourselves to the future generations. Let us all collectively resolve to leave behind a better world for our children than the one you and I inherited. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Minister. One of the really big issues with these virtual conferences that you miss the human interaction. So after a powerful speech like that, like we've been hearing throughout the whole session, there would be warm applause and appreciation of the effort that's been put into putting down thoughts that connect India and Africa. Minister, thank you very much indeed. I mean, I don't even need to go through some of the things that he spoke about, but certainly I saw a shop window into India, from railways to ICT to roads and all these other sectors where India has certainly triumphed, including Pharma, that we know there are many Indian companies that are operating here that I know of that are producing vital medicines that are helping the people of Africa. And here is a hope that we are making a beginning. Right. Let's move on now in our program, and let me invite Sam Bembe. I told you earlier that he and I have more than a decade of working together. It's an interesting story because he concentrated on Africa, and I, in my reporting, have also concentrated on Africa. He in a different way, me in a different way. And here we are today, 12 years on, still talking, still collaborating on the African continent. Sam Bembe, he is a founding director of the Africa Business Group. Sam.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. Distinguished guests, Honorable Union Minister of Commerce, Industry and Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Sri Piyush Goyal, Minister of Sports, Heritage, Culture and of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. Amina Mohammed, my colleagues, Mr. Rajiv Pura, the president of Immc, and Mr. Agrawal, chairman of the Summit Organizing Committee, really appreciative of the insights and the dedication that has been shown today to make this big responsibility of looking after 1/3 of the human population in the world. It's really not a small task, and I'm so excited by the energy that you have displayed in the introduction of this inaugural Indo-Africa Summit 2020. On behalf of the IMC and the ABN 360 Group and their respective directors, I'd like to convey my sincere appreciation for your time and valuable insight, as I've said. We honestly appreciate your vision, energies, and dedication. It is a mammoth task to look after the 1/3 of the human population on Earth. It's really time to bring about a full life to the natural cooperation that was built long time ago between India and the continent of Africa. And many of our guests today have mentioned the need to start capitalizing on this natural bond. But what's more important, I am excited by mentioning the word mutual benefit. I think the time for socioeconomic development has come, that everyone needs to understand that the world is looking at moving in the same direction together in a beneficial relationship. International trade from time immemorial has been at the heart of socioeconomic development of the world. It has been an available tool to create an equitable and sustainable societies. We're here guided by principles of comparative advantages. Most of our guests today mentioned the natural endowments that we have in our respective continents and subcontinents. So we had to develop that, and progress has been made in some sectors to really take us to the area of competitive advantage and actually bring forth the talent and the innovative capabilities of our people. And I think the last part, it's really bringing forth the principles of competition. So there has to be a greater involvement of us cooperating for the mutual benefit. I think that's the only solution to sustain the welfare of our people going forward. I am so excited by the opportunities to innovate, excited on the collaborative infrastructure for health and also education in many instances, but generally the industry and the way of industrializing, especially on the African continent, the way of bringing infrastructure, the required infrastructure to sustain all these economic and commerce activities. Really exciting. We appreciate your time and very, very, very appreciative of your time and energies in that respect. Very excited to have mentioned bluntly from both ministers the challenges that we're facing. I mean, in the past, our champions of development have shied away from detailing what actually is at the heart of challenge of the socio-economic challenge for our people. And I think thereby they were missing quite a lot, because our ordinary people actually are activists in bettering their life and making sure that there's overall welfare, better welfare for all. And I think by outlining the challenges and not shying away from them, we actually mobilizing all the energies and 1/3 of the human population might be heading in the same direction. And believe you me, that's the power of human beings. So once we get to be mobilized in the same direction, I believe humanity, not just India and Africa, humanity will be better off from the energies that we can display here. Lastly, but not least, I would like to say a big thank you to the organizing committee, as I've mentioned, the chairman, both for IMC and ABN Group under the leadership of Mr. Poda, and also the contribution from ABN, Roberta Naika. Thank you, and thank you. It's really well appreciated for this launch. Good luck, wishes to the Master of Ceremony, my friend, Mr. Godfrey Mutizwa, for the rest of the coming session. I'm excitedly looking forward. Thank you for being a part of this enlightening session, and really congratulations to all of you, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much indeed. There are a lot of people behind in the background who have been working very, very hard to make sure that this summit is a success. And I can only mention some of them because that's what I remember. We're talking Jill de Villiers, we're talking Phil, we're talking Devold, we're talking Sean. There are guys in the background who have been working very hard. We are in new premises. They are working like they've been here since time began. And we're very grateful indeed that we're able to get the message of the Indo-Africa Summit to be getting to you. Of course, I know that we're all watching what's happening in the US. It doesn't look like we're going to have that result anytime soon. So stay here on CNBC Africa and come back and join us for our next session, where we are talking about the Indo-African geopolitics. Does the polarization and the fight that we have seen between the US and China provide an opportunity for the creation of another axis between India and Africa? Our guests are ready. Let's take a break and come after this break.